Did you know that ADHD isn't just something children struggle with? In fact, thousands of seniors across the United States are being newly diagnosed every year, often after their 60th birthday. For decades, many brushed off their scattered attention, their tendency to lose track of tasks, or the clutter that seemed to follow them from room to room as just aging. But what if it wasn't just forgetfulness? What if those unfinished chores, those half-read books stacked by the bedside, or that endless cycle of starting and stopping were actually the hidden signs of ADHD? Imagine this: you open one drawer in the kitchen to tidy up some old utensils, but within minutes you've drifted into the living room, now knee-deep in piles of papers you didn't even intend to touch. Hours slip away, and instead of feeling accomplished, you're left surrounded by chaos, wondering how you got there. If that feels familiar, you're not alone, and it's not a sign of failure. It's simply the way an ADHD brain works, even in later life. Here's the hopeful part: you don't have to stay stuck in the cycle of clutter, distraction, and overwhelm. Seniors across the country are finding relief through some unusual, almost quirky life hacks, simple shifts that can bring surprising calm, structure, and focus back into their homes and routines. These aren't the tired old clean-as-you-go tips you've heard before. They are fresh, strange, and surprisingly effective strategies that really work for older adults. So stick with me, and before we begin, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. Because what you're about to hear could change the way you see clutter, cleaning, and daily focus after 60. Let's dive into these life-changing ADHD hacks together, starting right now. Meet Zadie. She's 70 years old, a retired piano teacher living in a quiet Vermont town where the winters are long and the days often feel slower than they used to. For decades, her life was filled with rhythm, both in the classroom and at home. She taught generations of children to play scales and sonatas, reminding them to practice with patience and discipline. But in her own daily life, Zadie felt like she was always out of sync. Her house, though cozy and filled with memories, seemed to carry a weight she couldn't shake. Piles of laundry often sat half-folded on the couch, kitchen counters became home to mail, receipts, and shopping lists, and closets overflowed with things she hadn't touched in years. She would start one task, like putting away dishes, but halfway through she'd find herself in the bedroom rearranging drawers she hadn't planned to touch. Hours later, the dishes were still waiting, the laundry remained undone, and Zadie felt defeated. For the longest time, she assumed this was what aging looked like. Friends joked about senior moments, and she nodded along, thinking the forgetfulness, the scattered energy, and the constant clutter were just part of growing older. But inside, she often felt frustrated, like her brain was moving in a dozen directions at once, and none of them ever reached the finish line. It wasn't until she read an article about ADHD in older adults that something clicked. The description felt eerily familiar: starting and abandoning projects, feeling overwhelmed by clutter, struggling with focus. Suddenly, it wasn't just slowing down. It was ADHD. That realization changed everything. Zadie no longer saw herself as broken or lazy. Instead, she began to experiment with strange, quirky little tricks to outsmart her wandering focus. These weren't the usual just-make-a-list strategies that never seemed to stick. They were unusual hacks, colorful, memorable, and surprisingly effective for her stage of life. And step by step, they helped her reclaim her sense of rhythm, not just at the piano, but in her home and daily routine. Hack 1. The 2-minute declutter chair. Zadie's very first trick was something she called the 2-minute declutter chair. It began with a simple idea. Instead of seeing her clutter as one enormous, impossible mountain, she would break it into small, focused moments. She took an old wooden chair, painted it a bold teal so it stood out, and placed it right by her entryway where she couldn't walk past without noticing it. The chair wasn't meant for relaxing, sipping tea, or reading. It came with one very specific rule: you could only sit in it if you were committing to one, and only one, 2-minute task. That task could be anything: sort the day's mail into recycle, pay, and keep. Fold the towels stacked in a basket. Clear a single shelf in the hallway closet. Wipe down the kitchen counter by the sink. Just 2 minutes. No deep cleaning. No overwhelming spring cleaning projects. just something small enough that her brain didn't rebel against it. At first, she felt silly. Could a chair really change her habits? But almost immediately, she noticed the difference. The chair became a visual anchor, almost like a gentle coach reminding her, sit, act, finish. Instead of thinking about the entire messy kitchen, she thought, I'll clear this one counter. Instead of worrying about a whole laundry pile, she thought, I'll fold just this basket. And because 2 minutes is manageable, her ADHD brain didn't resist. The results built slowly but steadily. That intimidating stack of papers on her counter shrank day by day. Laundry piles no longer loitered in corners. Shelves she hadn't touched in years suddenly looked clear and usable. What surprised her most was the emotional shift. Instead of feeling guilty about what she didn't get done, she began celebrating the little victories. 2 minutes here, 2 minutes there, each one was a win, and the wins added up. And sometimes, 2 minutes led to more. She'd sit to fold a basket of laundry and end up organizing the whole linen closet. She'd clear one shelf and feel motivated enough to tackle the next. But even on the days she stopped right at 2 minutes, she knew she had moved forward. For seniors with ADHD, the challenge isn't laziness, it's overwhelm. The 2-minute declutter chair works because it strips away the pressure. It tells your brain, just do a little. And little by little, a little becomes a lot. You don't need a teal chair like Zadie's. Any chair, stool, or even a bright cushion will do. The secret is the rule. Sit only if you're ready to act. Just one task. Just 2 minutes. And over time, you'll watch clutter shrink, confidence grow, and peace return to your home, 2 minutes at a time. Hack 2. The Grocery Cart Compass. Zadie never thought of grocery shopping as a challenge until it started draining her energy week after week. She would walk into the store with a mental list of a few essentials, milk, bread, maybe her favorite tea, and somehow walk out with bags of things she didn't plan for, while forgetting the 1 or 2 items she actually needed. She'd come home frustrated, realizing she had picked up another box of crackers she already had at home but missed her prescription refill or the cleaning supplies that were on her original list. For someone living with ADHD, the grocery store was a trap filled with distractions. Colorful displays, sale signs shouting limited time only, seasonal items begging for attention, and aisle after aisle of possibilities. That's when she came up with what she called her grocery cart compass. The name alone made her smile, because it reminded her of something sturdy and reliable, a tool to guide her when her brain wanted to wander. Before each trip, she wrote down her most important items on a small piece of paper, just the bare essentials. The medication, the produce she planned meals around, the staples she couldn't skip. She kept the list short on purpose, so it felt achievable instead of overwhelming. Then, once in the store, she taped that little note to the handle of her cart. But the real power came in the second part of the hack. Every time she turned into a new aisle, she forced herself to stop and physically touch the paper. Just a gentle tap of her fingers. That small, tactile gesture worked like a reset button. It pulled her wandering attention back to the task at hand, reminded her of what mattered, and helped her steer away from impulse buys or distractions. To anyone watching, it probably looked like she was adjusting her list or steadying her cart, but for Zadie it was a lifeline. At first, she doubted it. Could something as odd as tapping a piece of paper really change the way she shopped? But within weeks, the difference was undeniable. She came home with the right items, fewer duplicates, and far less clutter for her pantry. Instead of bags filled with random snacks, she had what she actually needed for the week. She noticed her receipts shrinking too, because she wasn't grabbing whatever caught her eye in the moment. The grocery cart compass didn't just help her stay focused, it helped her save money, reduce food waste, and feel calmer about the entire process. Over time, the ritual became second nature. She even started to look forward to using her compass because it gave her a sense of control. For someone who had spent years feeling scattered and frustrated by forgotten items, it was empowering. Shopping trips were quicker, her kitchen was more organized, and she no longer felt buried under the clutter of things she didn't really want or need. The hack worked because ADHD brains respond well to tactile reminders. Holding, touching, or tapping something physical anchors attention in a way that mental lists or even phone apps often can't. For Zadie, the compass wasn't just a piece of paper. It was a grounding practice that turned grocery shopping from a dreaded chore into a manageable, almost calming routine. If grocery stores leave you feeling exhausted or unfocused, try it yourself. Write down the essentials, tape the list to your cart, and touch it at every aisle. It might sound strange, but for seniors like Zadie, this little compass can keep you on track, protect your energy, and make sure you bring home exactly what you came for, without the clutter and frustration that used to weigh you down. Hack 3. The music cleaning cue. Zadie had always lived with music surrounding her. As a piano teacher, rhythm and melody were her lifelong companions, so it felt natural to turn back to music when her ADHD made daily cleaning overwhelming. She created what she called the music cleaning cue. The idea was simple yet unusual: tie specific chores to specific songs. Instead of relying on sticky notes, reminders, or endless to-do lists that never seemed to work, she let music be her guide. Her choices were personal and filled with nostalgia. When Moon River played, she watered her plants, moving from pot to pot with the gentle rhythm of the tune. Rock Around the Clock was her cue to wipe the kitchen counters until they sparkled. Fly Me to the Moon meant folding laundry, a task that once felt endless now fit neatly into the length of a familiar song. Each melody became a signal, telling her brain what needed to be done without overwhelming her with the big picture. At first, Zadie wasn't sure this would work. Wouldn't she just get lost in the music and forget the chores altogether? But instead, she found herself more focused than ever. Music gave her a container for her energy, a start and end point that felt manageable. She didn't need to think about how long folding the laundry would take, she only needed to focus until the song ended. For an ADHD brain that often struggles with time management, this was liberating. The hack also brought joy back into what had once been drudgery. Cleaning no longer felt like punishment. It became a mini-concert, a private dance party in her living room. She sang along, tapped her feet, and let her body move while her hands worked. The tasks that used to drain her felt lighter, even fun. And because music is tied so deeply to memory and emotion, each cue carried her back to moments of her past, dances, recitals, and quiet evenings with family. Over time, her home began to reflect this rhythm. Counters stayed clear because they were wiped down regularly, laundry piles disappeared more quickly, and plants thrived because they were watered consistently. But more importantly, Zadie herself felt calmer. She wasn't carrying the heavy guilt of undone chores anymore. She was celebrating little wins every time she pressed play. What made this hack powerful was its simplicity and personalization. Anyone could pick their own songs and tie them to tasks that felt daunting. For seniors, especially those with ADHD, it turns cleaning into something to look forward to rather than something to avoid. Music bridges the gap between intention and action, giving structure to the scattered mind while filling the heart with warmth. So, the next time you feel stuck, try choosing a favorite tune. Let it be more than background noise. Let it be the spark that moves you to act. With the music cleaning cue, Zadie didn't just clean her home, she filled it with rhythm, laughter, and life again. Hack 4. The Pocket Pebble Reset. Zadie often found herself in the middle of a whirlwind of unfinished tasks. She would start clearing the dining table, then notice a pile of books on the floor, then spot laundry that needed folding, and before long nothing was completed. Her ADHD made her feel as if her mind was constantly jumping from one thing to another, leaving behind half-done chores and rising frustration. To break the cycle, she came up with the Pocket Pebble Reset. During a quiet walk by a nearby river, she picked up a smooth, palm-sized pebble that felt comforting to hold. She slipped it into her pocket and gave it a very specific purpose. Whenever she felt overwhelmed, scattered, or on the verge of abandoning a task, she would reach for the pebble. She held it firmly in her hand, let her fingers trace its surface, and took a slow, grounding breath. That moment of pause was her signal to stop the spiral and reset her focus. The pebble became more than just a rock, it became her anchor. Instead of letting her mind drift to 5 unfinished chores, she asked herself a single question while holding it: what's the one thing I can finish right now? That question, paired with the tactile sensation, brought her back to the present. Sometimes the answer was as small as clearing the coffee table, putting shoes back in the closet, or rinsing dishes. Other times it meant folding one load of laundry from start to finish. Whatever it was, it kept her from scattering further and gave her a sense of completion. At first, she worried this would feel silly, but she soon realized how powerful it was. ADHD brains often need a physical cue to reconnect with focus, and the pebble was exactly that. It was small, portable, and always with her, whether she was in the kitchen, the living room, or even out running errands. Each time she touched it, she felt calmer and more in control. Over time, the pocket pebble reset became a ritual. Just the act of feeling it in her pocket reminded her that she had a choice. She wasn't at the mercy of her distractions. She had a tool she could lean on at any moment. The clutter in her home didn't vanish overnight, but it no longer felt impossible. Piece by piece, task by task, she gained back her rhythm and her confidence. You don't need to find your pebble by a river. It could be a bead, a coin, or a seashell, anything small and soothing that you can keep with you. What matters is the ritual: touch, breathe, reset, act. For seniors with ADHD, this hack is a gentle yet powerful reminder that no matter how chaotic life feels, you can always pause, ground yourself, and move forward with one simple step. Hack 5. The remote control rule. Evenings were often a source of guilt for Zadie. After long days filled with scattered energy, she loved to unwind in front of the television. Old movies, game shows, and the nightly news gave her comfort. But hours of sitting in front of the screen left her feeling unproductive, especially as clutter grew around her. Laundry piled up on the chair, mail collected on the table, and dishes waited in the sink. To break the cycle, she created the remote control rule. The rule was straightforward but surprisingly effective. She could not touch the TV remote until she completed one small chore. It didn't have to be big, just one microtask. Some nights it meant clearing the coffee table of cups and magazines. Other nights it was rinsing the dishes, wiping the bathroom sink, or sorting through the day's mail. The goal wasn't perfection, just progress. What made this hack work was the way it tied reward to responsibility. ADHD brains thrive on immediate rewards, and TV was one of her favorite pleasures. By linking it to a task, she turned relaxation into a motivator rather than a source of guilt. Instead of sinking into the couch while surrounded by mess, she watched TV with a sense of accomplishment, knowing she had already done something to care for her home. At first, Zadie thought this might feel like punishment, but it quickly became a game. She started asking herself, "What's one quick thing I can do to earn the remote?" That question shifted her perspective. The clutter didn't feel like an endless burden anymore. It felt like an opportunity to win small victories. Within weeks, she noticed changes in her environment. The living room stayed tidier, the mail stopped forming overwhelming piles, and the kitchen looked more inviting. More importantly, she noticed changes in how she felt. Instead of ending her evenings weighed down by guilt, she ended them with peace. The remote control rule didn't take away her enjoyment of television, it enhanced it. She associated her shows with satisfaction instead of avoidance. The hack worked because it fit naturally into her routine, turning a passive activity into a positive cycle of action and reward. For seniors with ADHD, this hack is a reminder that you don't need to overhaul your habits. Sometimes, you just need to link what you enjoy with what you need to do. One small task, one earned reward, one lighter evening at a time. Hack 6. The Sunrise Glass Ritual. Mornings had always been difficult for Zadie. She often woke up feeling like the day was already slipping through her fingers. The kitchen counters seemed cluttered, the laundry basket was waiting, and yesterday's dishes stared back at her. ADHD mornings can feel like starting in chaos, and once the day begins that way, it can be hard to recover. To shift her mornings, Zadie created the sunrise glass ritual. Each night before bed, she set a clean, empty glass on the kitchen counter by the window. In the morning, before checking her phone, before diving into chores, before worrying about anything, she filled the glass with water and drank it while standing by the sunlight. That was it, her very first act of the day. The ritual may have seemed small, but it gave her mornings an anchor. Instead of starting with clutter and distraction, she started with clarity and hydration. It was a tangible, calming reset. The glass became a symbol of choice. Even if the rest of the day got messy, she could begin with one steady, positive action. The surprising thing was how that one act rippled through her mornings. After finishing the water, she often felt motivated to rinse the dishes, open the blinds, or throw in a load of laundry. The ritual wasn't about forcing herself into big tasks, it was about creating momentum. And momentum matters for ADHD brains. Once she began, it was easier to keep going. What made the sunrise glass ritual special was its simplicity. It didn't require planning, effort, or equipment. It was just one glass of water, one moment of mindfulness, one beam of sunlight to greet the day. But the impact was profound. Her mornings felt less chaotic, her body felt refreshed, and her mind felt calmer. Over time, the ritual became non-negotiable. She looked forward to it, almost like a quiet morning meditation. It reminded her that no matter how scattered life felt, she could always start fresh each day. For seniors living with ADHD, mornings don't have to be rushed or overwhelming. They can begin with one grounding ritual that sets the tone. A simple glass of water by the window can be the difference between a scattered start and a calm, focused day. Hack 7. The Closet Corner Donation Bag. Clutter was one of the heaviest burdens for Zadie. Over the years, her closets and shelves filled with clothes she no longer wore, books she never reread, and trinkets she didn't really need. She longed for simplicity, but the thought of decluttering the house felt impossible. Big cleanouts left her drained and discouraged. Donation piles in hallways created safety risks and only added to the chaos. That's when she created the Closet Corner Donation Bag. She placed a sturdy, reusable shopping bag in the corner of her bedroom closet. The rule was simple. Whenever she came across something she no longer needed, an outfit that didn't fit, a book she'd already finished, a kitchen gadget collecting dust, she immediately dropped it into the bag. No debating, no waiting for a decluttering day, just one decision at a time. The magic of this hack was how it fit seamlessly into her daily life. She didn't set aside overwhelming hours to fix everything. She just acted in the moment. Found an old sweater? Into the bag. Stumbled across a duplicate spatula? Into the bag. One item at a time, the bag slowly filled. When the bag was full, she tied it shut and set aside a time to donate it. Then she replaced it with a fresh empty bag in the same closet corner, ready to start the process again. The cycle repeated itself, quietly and steadily, without disrupting her routine. Over weeks and months, the difference was remarkable. Her closets no longer felt like overstuffed caves. Her shelves held only what she truly valued. The clutter that once weighed on her felt lighter, manageable, even hopeful. She didn't dread decluttering anymore. She embraced it in small, consistent doses. This hack worked because it removed the overwhelm. ADHD brains often freeze at the thought of big projects. But one item at a time? That felt achievable. The bag was out of the way, safe from creating tripping hazards, but always there as a reminder that letting go didn't have to be painful. For Zadie, the Closet Corner Donation Bag wasn't just about stuff. It was about freedom. Every item she let go of was a piece of weight lifted from her mind. Her home became calmer, and so did her heart. For seniors managing ADHD, this hack proves that decluttering doesn't need to be dramatic. It can be gentle, safe, and deeply satisfying. One bag, one choice, one step toward peace at a time. Zadie often thought her home would always feel like a maze of clutter. For years, she assumed ADHD meant permanent chaos, stacks of laundry waiting, dishes half done, and closets she couldn't bear to open. But slowly, through small, strange hacks, her story shifted. She discovered that focus didn't come from willpower alone, it came from clever strategies tailored to her brain. Now, when she reflects, she smiles. I thought ADHD meant I'd always live in clutter. But these little, unusual tricks gave me calm mornings, cleaner rooms, and most importantly, space to breathe again. Each hack wasn't about perfection. It was about progress, about proving to herself that she could find peace in the middle of what once felt overwhelming. Her mornings started with the sunrise glass ritual, giving her body hydration and her mind a clear beginning. Her evenings ended with the remote control rule, letting her enjoy her favorite shows with pride instead of guilt. The 2-minute declutter chair chipped away at piles that once felt impossible, while the grocery cart compass kept her errands focused and her pantry free of clutter she didn't need. Music turned cleaning into joy, the pebble kept her grounded, and the closet corner donation bag gave her the freedom to let go gently. The transformation wasn't dramatic or overnight. It was steady, consistent, and life-giving. Zadie realized that ADHD after 60 wasn't the end of order, it was the beginning of creative solutions. She didn't need to copy strategies designed for younger people with different lives. She needed hacks that resonated with her rhythm, her memories, her routines. And with them, she reclaimed her space, her confidence, and her peace of mind. Her story holds a bigger truth. Your golden years aren't about fading, they're about finding new ways to thrive. Life after 60 is still full of possibilities, full of moments to reinvent how you live. ADHD doesn't erase that. If anything, it invites you to be more creative, more compassionate with yourself, and more open to trying the unusual. So here's your invitation. Don't let clutter or scattered focus convince you that peace is out of reach. Start with one hack, one change, one small promise to yourself. Because those tiny steps can create a life that feels lighter, calmer, and freer than you imagined. If even one of these hacks gave you hope, do this right now. Hit that like button, share this video with a friend over 60 who deserves more peace, and subscribe to Wise Aging Seniors. Together, we'll keep uncovering the secrets that make life after 60 not just manageable, but deeply rewarding. Your best years are never behind you, they're always waiting ahead.